Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Love Your Dogs podcast. This podcast is heart-led, experience-based, and sometimes a little bit of dry science. My name is Bre Drake. I am a holistic dog health educator and a certified holistic pet health coach. And for those of you who follow me on Instagram earlier today, what is today? Tuesday, the 28th of July. I did announce that I have decided to formally study homeopathy too. Long story short, I've just been fascinated by homeopathy ever since I first learned about it. Some of my favorite vets to learn from are homeopathic veterinarians like Dr. William Falconer, Dr. Todd Cooney, Dr. Jessica Levy, Dr. Marcy Fallick, and I just love them. And speaking of Dr. Marcy Fallick, if you haven't read her book, Little Miracles Everywhere, you should absolutely grab it and read it. It's a beautiful read about her journey as a veterinarian and eventually discovering homeopathy. So I think that's kind of what really just inspired me and left me awestruck, was learning about this energetic medicine that comes from plants and minerals and animals. So Dr. Pitcairn has, I think it's a university or an academy, to study homeopathy for pets, for animals. The problem is that it's for licensed veterinary professionals only. I think vet techs can even do the program. So that would exclude me unless I went to at least 2 years of vet school, which you know me, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to risk being indoctrinated. And plus, I think they would kick me out. So I've been on this evolution since discovering holistic care for dogs and then, losing my guys and just what I've learned here on my mission to educate so many more people about, the dark side of the vet industry, the pet industry, even the whole holistic wellness industry for animals. It's been my duty to share this information. And on this journey, I've just been evolving, and I've learned quickly how much we impact the health of our animals. Our animals are so emotionally attuned, especially breeds like golden retrievers and Labradors. And I have this theory that I can't prove with studies, at least not that I have found yet, that it is our most emotionally attuned breeds and dogs who get sick and end up with cancer because of things that their trusted guardian, are going through that they feel, whether it's fear, whether it's a stressful relationship, stressful life change, a living situation, a job. There's just so much of our human spirit that it's affecting them health-wise. So I know that sounds woo-woo to some of you, but trust me, I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes, and I feel like this is where I'm called to most, because the more people I work with one-on-one, while I love you all, the more I'm learning about myself and how what I was going through emotionally may have impacted my dog's diagnoses and what happened with them. And I just see so many issues that are connected to how the humans I work with, are living and existing with their dogs. Long story short. So I am not doing Dr. Pitcairn's program, obviously, but there is an amazing homeopath out of Australia named Melissa Kupch. And that's a hard word to say, her last name. She is at that homeopath on Instagram. And there is no one I've come across. I feel this in my soul, but I don't feel like I'm doing as good a job of her as this, but I feel like she has immeasurable heal the world energy. And I feel that for dogs. And I hope that comes across to some degree, but I know I can do better. So I'm really excited to, she's a homeopath. She practiced herself and worked one-on-one, and has since wrote a book and has remedycollective.com, where she sells remedies and kits. And she's also established Remedy Academy, where she's training people to become homeopaths. It's a 2-year program. It's human focused. But like I just mentioned, I think focusing on the human aspect is going to be really important for me in helping our dogs. And the beauty of homeopathy is that it's not species biased. It can work on plants, on animals, on humans. So it will be easy to transfer. And I have a good base of animal homeopathy knowledge at this point and some experience too with acute situations. So I'm excited to dive in more. I know she's having a few veterinary homeopaths as guest lecturers throughout the course. And I do plan to work with as many veterinary homeopaths as I can during my studies to learn, because I think it is the most powerful medicine. I just, I took my holistic pet health coaching course through Dr. Ruth Roberts a couple years ago now, and it was very supplement heavy, which, I'm pretty much against supplements because I think most of what we need for our dogs can be achieved through being outside in nature and giving them appropriate whole food, species appropriate diet, emotional things, nervous system regulation, safety. So supplements to me just never really felt right. And I was feeling limited in what I was doing, working one-on-one. I would go over all of these simple, natural things with my clients and their dogs, but I want something more to offer them. So homeopathy is it, long story short. So big introduction. And I kind of went over today on Instagram, still in Montana. I think that we're only having 1 to 2 weeks left. So I'm still on the road. This will probably be the last podcast on the road unless another special guest chimes in here soon. But today I sat down again with Dr. Judy Jasek. I know you guys are a big fan of her. She is awesome. I can talk to her every day. I've actually put a bug in her ear about working together on something that I've had in my mind. She's just brilliant. I love her. She's a wonderful human being. She speaks the truth for better, for worse. She's a huge inspiration for me, although I feel like I've come leaps and bounds on feeling comfortable speaking out on some of these controversial topics. I'd always been a people pleaser, cared about being liked. I still care about that, admittedly, but less and less, because it really is about the animals. It's about the dogs. It's about speaking the truth. Losing my voice because I'm recording this intro after I had talked to her. So today, the topic, we planned to discuss vaccines, and we did discuss vaccines a lot, excuse me, at length, but we did go off on some other tangents too that are so valuable. She's a wealth of knowledge, and I hope her and I can work together on something soon. But for now, we'll continue to have these discussions so that all of you who are like-minded can hear them and listen to us. And, feel free in the comments or on Instagram, share your thoughts on these episodes. If there's any epiphanies you have by some of these things that we talked about, let me know, because I know every time she's talking, I'm like, wow, like I never thought of it that way. I love learning, especially from people in a world that's just dominated by digital space and by artificial intelligence. And it's just so nice to learn from humans, especially humans that have had 40 years of experience. So without further ado, here's another lovely conversation with Dr. Judy Jasek. Hi, so good to see you again.
You as well.
How have you been? How's your summer going?
Good. Busy and just like flying by. It's like another month's gone. Like, what the heck?
I know.
Like, where does the time go?
It is crazy. Yeah. I've been so looking forward to talking to you about this. The last couple of times we've chatted, it's been like, we just want to go here so bad about the vaccine. So
yeah.
I'm excited.
It's such a huge issue and just so important. So
yeah. And honestly, I hate how much we have to focus on it and how hard you have to work to convince people that they're not safe. It should be a no-brainer. That's how deep the brainwashing goes.
And how hard it is to navigate the medical system if you're not doing vaccines.
Yeah, or, the training, the boarding. I mean, there's just so many things holding people back. Yeah. It just amazes me that we decide we'd rather harm our animals than make some sacrifices. So,
right. People unfortunately choose convenience over really advocating for their pet. I see it a lot. People want to fly, want to travel, want to do different things, but if you're animate that you're not going to do the vaccines, you are going to have to change your lifestyle and what you do. You might have to get some YouTube videos and learn how to groom. Like it might not look as pretty, but they won't be getting the vaccines.
I know. I get asked the questions over and over. Anytime I mention vaccines, it's, well, what do I do about boarding? What do I do about grooming? Well, I have to travel to another country. And I'm like, well, you have to decide what's most important. And if you have to do it, you need to be prepared to support your animal afterward or beforehand as well. Right. Yeah. And I was just talking about this on my social media this morning because I'm traveling right now. We travel out west every summer, and we've been out here for a couple of months, and I have a 100% naturally reared, unvaccinated dog, and I'm obviously cautious, but he can do a lot of things, and he exists just fine, meeting other dogs, around wildlife. And I mean, so I'm trying to be that example for people that it can be done. It should be normalized. There's nothing to be afraid of. I mean, he's been in dozens of different bodies of water now at this point and drinking from water sources and puddles, and he's just a healthy guy. It's just
the thing that people, I think, have to be concerned about is toxicity. Yeah. So like if they're going in water, like is it somewhere where things could have been dumped? It isn't the Giardia or the microorganisms.
Yeah, it's not the natural things. It's the man-made things.
Right. Exactly. And if they are on a good diet and have a good, healthy gut, they're probably going to be fine. And if they get something, and this is where I think people kind of panic if there's a symptom like, I took my dog out and he got diarrhea, so he must have Giardia or parvo or something like that. Like, no, maybe he just got something his body doesn't want in there and is pooping it out. It's like how the body gets rid of stuff. So it's a good thing. Like, let the body eliminate what it's trying to eliminate, and chances are it's going to be fine. You don't need to run in and get a bunch of drugs or updated vaccines or anything, because that's probably just going to make them sicker in the long run. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I have a subscriber group on my social media, and I've had a few people lately with GI upset problems and diarrhea problems. And there was actually one who did test positive for Giardia. So how do you usually approach that if you dealt with a patient facing that?
Well, so it depends on the type of test done for one. So there's these antigen tests now where they're just testing for like a protein from the parasites, and they have them for all different parasites. They have them for Giardia and a lot of the roundworms and stuff now. They're not, that always used to be like, and even for Giardia, to diagnose it, you'd get a stool sample and you do a flotation procedure where you mix it with like a zinc sulfate or some liquid that the eggs or the organisms like Giardia would float up to the top. And then you have a microscope slide on top and they stick to that. And you put it under the microscope and then you see them in there. Now they're doing these antigen tests and I just don't trust them, to be honest. It's one of those little,
we'll get into that.
testing for a protein, like who knows if they're accurate, or even if they're accurate, like there could be false positives or cross reactions. Like there could be another protein in there that's similar that it's going to pick up as a positive. So if they identify an organism, like they actually see the Giardia cysts in the stool and they're symptomatic, then I like to do, like herbal treatments. Like I would usually do like an herbal dewormer or something. Asmira, the company Asmira has a parasite Giardia detox, and it's just got the common herbal dewormers like wormwood, black walnut. It's got some others in there. I can't remember what all of them are, but that's just a real good formula. People can just go online and buy it or look at the ingredients and, buy those herbs, those anti-parasitic herbs. Exactly. If they're really sick, or it's like a growing puppy and like we're finding Giardia and they're just really seeming compromised and we just can't get the diarrhea cleared up, then that's when I might do a conventional anti-parasitic, like a fenbendazole or something, or even, metronidazole I try to avoid. That's kind of that's the kind of old time, long time treatment for something like Giardia. So I try to avoid that. But if a growing puppy has a condition that's stunting his growth and their gut's compromised, and there's usually more to the picture, like maybe they didn't get enough colostrum when they were nursing, or they had poor nutrition as they were developing. And, if they're getting just too run down, then that's the time where you want to intervene, wipe out wipe out that organism. And then, but you're still doing all the things to support their immune system,
Right.
So I kind of look at it on a case-by-case basis. If a dog tests like positive for Giardia and they have no symptoms, and I wouldn't do anything except the stuff we always recommend, like make sure they're on a healthy diet. And I'm really big too on the ferments, like feeding like fermented veggies, raw fermented dairy, things like that. So giving live bacterial cultures and introducing some healthy live bacteria into the gut instead of like the products in the capsules, like the capsule probiotics.
I know.
Because you just don't know how many live bacteria are in there. Nobody knows. The companies don't know. I mean, you're just going on faith that what they say is on the label is actually still live and in the capsule, but you have no idea. So doing things like that. And, I always go back to nature. Like, I think the reason that some dogs, and this is true for people too, get sick and have symptoms and have a harder time recovering is they're too far removed from the natural world. So when you ask, well, where would dogs have gotten bacteria in nature? Well, dogs are natural diggers. They'd be out there in the soil digging up. People don't want dogs digging up their yard or their go areas where they've been sprayed and there's chemicals. You don't want dogs digging there. That's their natural source. I mean, the soil is full of bacteria. So that's their natural source of getting good, healthy bacteria in their gut. That's the type of thing that really keeps them healthy and keeps them from needing the vaccines in the first place. I really think illness is any symptoms. I mean, for the most part, is going to be some sort of toxicity, something that is in the animal's body that it doesn't want there, that it's trying to get rid of. Respiratory symptoms is going to be something in the lungs, something that's irritated.
They're coughing and trying to get it out.
The lungs or the airways. Right. Right. So they're trying to get it out, So, so-called bordetella, they'll say we'll go through boarding kennels. Well, they have to require it. So, or, we're going to have a bunch of dogs start coughing. Well, what disinfectant are they using? Maybe they're using something I can't be around bleach. Myself personally, I will get headaches. My chest starts to hurt. I can't stand it. You go into a public building, like a public restroom or something, and they've just cleaned it. And I'm practically holding my breath until I can get out of there.
Same here. And imagine how much more sensitive our dogs are to that.
Totally. And they're in a kennel. They're not in and out. They're hosing their kennels down with this stuff.
In the name of safety. It's
right.
Sanitizing everything to a harmful extent.
So is it some disease, some bug that went through the kennel, or a bunch of dogs are just sensitive to the disinfectant? Or you had a new worker there that made it way more concentrated than it's supposed to be. Like these things just don't get thought about, enough. Plus the stress, plus they're barking like crazy. I mean, I've worked in clinics that have a boarding kennel. Those dogs bark constantly, some of them. No doubt they're going to be coughing. It's just like, if you talked for 24 hours around the clock, or at least half the day, you're going to have a sore throat and, some respiratory symptoms, because your throat's strained. So we just have to think about what could be causing symptoms, I think, in terms of, like you were saying, there's so much fear around like not vaccinating and people stepping away from that paradigm of we have to vaccinate to keep our animals safe. It's like, well, what other reasons could there be for these symptoms showing up? Like I heard a great analogy once by it was a human practitioner I was listening to, and it was like, so two people are climbing a mountain and they both start to get, their faces get red and they start sweating and they're breathing really hard and their heart rate goes up. And so do they have the mountain climbing virus, or is that they're just both, their bodies are exposed to the same circumstances, right?
Yes. Oh, that's such a great analogy. Yeah.
And it's silly or ridiculously obvious when you say that, but isn't that what we're talking about? It's just animals in the same environment get the same symptoms, but our mindset has been trained to blame it on a virus or some organism because that sells vaccines.
Yes.
That's really, I mean, if you think about it, the whole vaccine industry is based on fear of viruses. If you took that one fear away, the whole vaccine industry goes away. So they have to keep that going. Parvo. So do puppies get sick? I've seen so many puppies with these horrific bloody diarrheas, vomiting, and they're sick, and I've seen puppies die.
Yeah.
But is it this virus called parvo? Even if they test positive, don't know. We learned during COVID that there's lots of things that could turn COVID tests positive. There was one report somebody did that they put, I don't know, like pineapple juice on it and it turned positive. And I heard a story about some teenagers in England that used Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
And to get out of going to school, they found ways to turn their COVID test positive so they could stay home,
Yeah. And I did some research into that after you and I had chatted back and forth. And, having had the parvo vaccine itself will give you a positive parvo test.
Yeah.
Just exposure to it naturally. And, the symptoms are likely completely unrelated because they can be caused by a multitude of different things. And then, of course, you have dogs with the parvo symptoms that are not responding to the parvo treatment now too. So yeah, it just tells us that there's other factors going on besides this so-called virus. And then, of course, the treatment itself, like you were just speaking to earlier, is to, give anti-nausea and anti-diarrheals, and we're stopping this body's detox and healing process instead of focusing on support. It just makes no sense to me.
Right.
It's
right.
so
And
sad.
the key thing in treating these puppies, so when I would say in the last 20 or so years of my practice, probably have not seen very much parvo because I was in Colorado in the Denver area, and it just really wasn't that common. When I started my career, I was in a rural area, and we were actually next to an Indian reservation, and there was just tons and tons of stray dogs. And I don't know whether it was because it was just poor nutrition. I mean, who knows what the dogs were eating, but we saw a lot of sick puppies, a lot of sick puppies. And now looking back, and we called it parvo, but we were testing them, called it parvo, and we'd have like 7 or 8 at a time in the clinic, like regularly. We just had always had these puppies on IVs. And back then my experience was like, I would say easily 90% of them did fine, but what they needed more than anything was the fluids. And I think because they can't keep up, they're vomiting, diarrhea, whatever their body's trying to get rid of. It's a pretty violent expulsion. Body's trying to get rid of something. And they cannot stay hydrated. And you have to push the fluids to them. The reason I think the survival rate is less, because I've had clients that their puppies get sick, they get diagnosed with parvo, they go into the ER, and I'm like, well, they're healthy. I mean, they got a healthy foundation. They should be fine. And then they die. And I'm like, and then I look at the records. Well, they're on 6, 7, 8 different medications while they're in there. It's multiple antibiotics and antiemetics and appetite stimulants. Like, this puppy can't even hold down water. Do you think an appetite stimulant is going to help them? They need to fast at that point, Sedate them. Every single dog now that goes into the clinic, whatever they're going in for, they're constantly being sedated. I worked with a client just recently that their dog went in for an exam, and it was a big dog. And I think it was in the hospital for a couple of days where they were trying to figure out what was going on. It was on 4 different sedatives.
Oh my goodness.
It was just crazy. And I never used to sedate for things like x-rays and ultrasounds, and they won't touch a dog anymore without sedating it. So
that's kind of common in conventional medicine now that I see the vets who are online, really pushing people and making a joke about how please don't come see us unless you give your dog some trazodone first. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You can't handle these animals? You're professionally trained to work with animals.
What
you're
happened
to drug them?
Yeah, what happened to just and for things like echocardiograms.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at the heart function and you're giving a sedative. You just change the function of the heart. So how are we going to get an accurate assessment of the heart? The first time now it's routine. The first time I had a client tell me their dog was sedated for an echo, I'm like, what? Like, that makes no sense. I mean, when I was still in practice and we had like a mobile cardiologist coming in, like they would never want you to sedate unless the dog was just too wiggly. But if you let their person be there with them, most dogs are fine. You can do these procedures, but no, they take them in the back. They're away from their people. Of course they're anxious. Who isn't anxious? The doctor. You just work them through it. You don't just drug them. But anyway, all these drugs in a young puppy whose body is, I mean, it's hard on any dog, but it's much harder on these young puppies. Their detox pathways aren't established yet. So you're giving them all these drugs to metabolize. Their body's already trying to detox. And I think it just overloads their metabolism. Right. And what they really need is the fluids. They need that IV fluid push. More than anything. And like I said, unless it was a dog that was already like immunocompromised or certain breeds, like Rottweilers, were a little bit known to be more susceptible for whatever reason. This was up in Idaho, so we would see some wolf hybrids, and the wolf hybrids seem to be a little more sensitive if they got these, parvo-like symptoms. But I would say easily 90% of them survived. Yeah. With just doing the fluid push. We'd usually give them like a penicillin injection. Like, this was back in the 80s,
Right.
Like, feels like the dark ages now.
A very simplistic approach. Less is more, less is more. I feel like I preach that all the time to people is stop trying to do everything. The body is already overwhelmed.
Right. And the belief that, if you believed, okay, this was caused by a virus. Yeah. The paradigm was, and still should be today, well, antibiotics don't treat viruses. There is no treatment for viruses except supportive care. Anyway, that was the old way of thinking. But now it's like they pump them full of all these drugs. And the way that happens is somebody does a research study or somehow the word gets out. There's a paper written or something about, I'm sure there's a paper out there somewhere that says that anxiety is stressful and dogs in a vet clinic are going to be, it's much better for them to be sedated or something. Somehow the information gets started and then it gets presented at like a continuing education meeting or something. And then it just becomes standard of care and then everybody's doing it. Nobody even thinks about it. Yeah. Yeah. It's just the way it is. And I've been practicing for 40 years, so I've seen these trends. It was like, I never told people. To me, it's just, it would have been unheard of unless it was a dog that was just completely unmanageable or highly aggressive, which is rare. And even if they're aggressive, you usually just have people put a muzzle on them when they come in. Yeah. But I wouldn't even think about asking somebody to sedate their dog to come into the clinic because you want them in their natural state. If you're going to be examining them, I want to know what they're like in their natural state. What is their heart rate and respiratory rate and all that in a natural state? Yeah. So, that's kind of bizarre. So we're kind of off topic on the vaccine issue.
No, that's okay. I believe that does play into it for sure. Because that I know you've done a lot of extensive research and I wanted to share an analogy I heard from Dr. Todd Cohen, who you told me about. And I started following his work very closely. And he gave the analogy of rats in a basement and there being rat poison. And all the rats get very sick and, have bloody diarrhea and are vomiting. And, it must be that the rat poison is this contagious disease, right? It's just like your mountain example. And I love following him. He's extremely intelligent. He does a really great job of explaining this whole or debunking the contagion theory.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very blunt too. He doesn't.
He's very blunt. He's confident in what he knows,
Yeah.
He's got a lot of confidence.
Another great example of that too, and this is actually a real life example, is years ago, sailors on ships would get very, very ill. They'd get skin disease and they'd be sick and they'd be dying. And you could say, well, there must be a virus going through. Well, all as they had to do was start putting limes and lemons on the ships and giving them some vitamin C. What they had was a vitamin C deficiency. They had scurvy.
Yeah.
And as soon as they started putting into their ration some citrus fruits, so they were getting vitamin C, they no longer got sick. But you could say, well, there must be some virus on that ship going through, all the sailors. So you could, come up with lots and lots of examples. And the point is, it's not that animals don't get sick. It's that we've been trained, and the paradigm is so strong out there to say that it's these viruses that are making animals sick.
Yeah.
And that you need to get the vaccines. And in truth, the vaccines just make them sicker. You're traveling with your dog. Your dog's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And rabies. So rabies is always the one that comes up because there's rules and regulations and there's a lot of fear around rabies because rabies supposedly can be transmitted to people.
Yeah.
Which has never actually been proven. You're following Tom Cowan, and he wrote a book called The Contagion Myth, that contagion, transmissible disease, has never actually been proven, meaning they look at this thing under the microscope, any so-called virus, say it's the rabies virus, it's supposed to be this little bullet-shaped thing that they look at under the microscope. They've never taken one of those things that they're calling a virus, completely isolated it. So you've got that thing and successfully reinfected any person, any animal. Like it's never been done. Rabies, originally, that whole narrative got started because Louis Pasteur took saliva from these so-called mad dogs. So you would have mad dogs that had the classical rabies symptoms, the salivation, the aggression. Took that saliva, injected it into a rabbit brain, and the rabbit had neurologic symptoms. Therefore, it had the rabies virus. But you're injecting a foreign substance into the brain. So
yes, unnaturally.
Of course there's going to be symptoms, right?
Yeah.
And then these dogs are automatically just euthanized. They never took these dogs, put them on a good diet, gave them a good home, and to see if they improved. This just rabies narrative took off, and they were scary looking, little Cujo image and all of that. They never looked at or considered any other narrative. And again, it was never proven back then. They weren't even looking at anything under the microscope. They were just saying, okay, this must be what it is because we're making these rabbits sick. And then the other thing that's really bizarre about rabies in animals is the testing. So they will say the only way to test an animal for rabies is you have to take the brain, which obviously requires killing the animal to do that. Yet in humans, so humans can supposedly get rabies. If you're going to, this is all, and you can go read this on the CDC website.
Yeah.
If a human is going to be tested, you can test blood, saliva, I think hair, all these, because you can't just kill a person, right? No. Test their brain just to test for a disease. Like they wouldn't ever get away with that. But in animals, it creates this huge fear factor. I mean, what a great way to scare people into getting the rabies vaccine for their pets because they don't want to have to euthanize them should there be any suspicion at all that they had rabies. So people are so afraid, like, I just want to get the shot so that I don't have to, deal with.
Yes. If they're not scared of the rabies virus that we've kind of made up, then they're definitely going to be scared of what happens if we suspect their animal has it.
Yeah.
What a way to sell vaccines. Yeah.
Exactly. Fear. Yeah. Fear is so powerful. Fear and guilt are the two most motivating emotions. motivating to get people to do things. I wanted to say something else too about like the testing. So when they look or preparing samples, like when they look at viruses, like if you go on like the CDC and you can find these pictures of the rabies virus, supposed to be this little bullet shaped thing. Well, the way they prep, so say they take an animal, like pieces of an animal brain or whatever they're testing, they take that tissue, and Tom Cowan talks about this too, and this really rang true with me when I heard him say it. I say, as soon as you take that tissue out of the body, it doesn't look like it does in the body. It starts to deteriorate. The cells are degenerating, so they're going to look different. And then you put it, to preserve it, you put it in formaldehyde, which is a toxin. So now those cells are toxic. You cut it into sections, you stain it, so you do toxic stains, and then for electron microscopy, I think they freeze it, and then they slice it really, really, really thin. So you've done all of these things to poison the cells. So this tissue, I mean, couldn't look anything like it does in the body naturally, because they've done all these really super toxic things to it. And then they point to one thing that looks a little unusual and say, that's the virus. And they've never proven that it causes disease. And that's how I've heard the same thing about the coronavirus, which has this like crown, like it looks like a crown. And Dr. Cowan's put up pictures. I've seen pictures he's posted of kidney biopsies of healthy kidneys, has the exact same thing in it. Yeah. It's some artifact of the processing, which is what they're really seeing. These things they're calling viruses are really just artifacts of the processing, and contagion has never been proven. And it's hard to get your head around this. It was hard for me to get my head around this at first. So I'm not critical of people that are like, but I'm afraid to not get the vaccines. Like, I get it, because this was ingrained in me for many, many years. And it's really been just through the whole COVID era that I really came to the point where I could say, no, all this virus stuff is a lie. It's really been made up. We need to look at what other reasons are pets getting sick. And then bottom line, these vaccines are just so toxic.
I know.
Just so toxic. They're introducing this mRNA technology, which, I mean, that's what they call it. But the bottom line is, who knows what's in these vaccines? There's no truth in labeling. I mean, they could be putting anything in them. And I just see pets getting sicker and sicker, cancer being diagnosed younger and younger, cancer being diagnosed within 3 months of a round of vaccines. Because I always look, it's not always the case, but I'll look and when did your pet start showing symptoms? Or if it's not cancer, say it's itchy skin or something, or when was the cancer diagnosis? And so often it can be timed with a round of vaccines. Did you hear that story? It's just so tragic. It was a woman who had twins, and they died 8 days after a vaccine, and she's being charged with murder because they won't attribute it to the vaccines.
Oh my God.
This is going on
how do they think she murdered them?
They're saying she murdered her kids. They're charging her with murder. Yeah, it just
to cover up that it could possibly be linked back to the vaccine.
Right.
That's
8 days.
Tragic.
And supposedly I was just listening to a show on Children's Health Defense about this today. And the doctors are even saying it was the vaccines, that 8 days afterwards, but they're saying it's just no possible way that both babies died 8 days after the vaccines. Like that just couldn't happen. That would be too coincidental, and that she murdered them. And now supposedly.
Why do they assume that the reactions are limited to a small window of time? And that when you're artificially stimulating the immune system, that it couldn't have long-lasting, long-term effects down the road? Like why, or even 8 days is still very relevant and
that's pretty short. Still a pretty short time period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that's mentality. Yeah.
Have you read, I always think back to this study, anytime I'm coming across something, I'm very much against vaccines, but if I ever start to have my doubts, I'm like, oh, maybe there's times where a vaccine could be beneficial. I remember back to this study from 1999, the Purdue study, the autoantibodies and the puppy vaccines. Have you ever seen this?
Was that by
it was by Purdue.
Schwartz? Was that
it may have been Schwartz, where they had, a population of vaccinated dogs, unvaccinated dogs. It was puppies. I think they were 6 to 8 weeks old. And the interesting piece of this story too is both sets of dogs were tested for antibodies and didn't have any. So at 6 to 8 weeks old, they didn't have mom's antibodies, which was interesting to me. But in 100% of the vaccinated population, those dogs developed autoantibodies. And they didn't find that in any of the unvaccinated puppies. And then with each additional vaccine in the puppy series, those numbers of autoantibodies went up. And we know that autoimmune diseases can't exist without autoantibodies, so they're not a good thing. And 100% is profound data.
Oh, yeah.
And the worst part about it is there's been no study since then. I think it lasted for 22 weeks. And in their defense, they say, well, we don't know if those dogs went on to develop autoimmune diseases. The study was too short. I'm like, oh, well, how convenient. Most of them are too short to tell you what happens long term.
And they didn't want that. They didn't want that data coming out.
Oh, no, it doesn't support the narrative. So they're not going to study it further. But if it had gone the other direction, they would have blown it out of the water. So I always think back to that study and it just drives me mad. I'm like, I hope to make enough money one day to pursue some of these things further to help prove to people that
I know
these are so unsafe for our animals and, any living being, humans too.
Right.
Yeah, I always think back to that.
It's over. I always think about it like they're just so disruptive to normal immune system function. So when you think about things like autoantibodies, you're just stimulating. You just think about it as, even if you don't want to think, well, what's an antibody? It's like you're just overstimulating the immune system. It's just developing all these antibodies and proteins and stuff.
Yeah.
It's designed to do that. That's what the metals in the aluminum and the mercury, they're preservatives, but they're also adjuvants. So that they want to stimulate that immune response so that they supposedly build the antibodies that they want them to build. But
they claim it's narrow and pathogen specific, but obviously it's a lot wider and can tell the body to start attacking itself. It becomes so confused.
Yeah. Right. Which, how bizarre is that? You've got a really disrupted process when, when that starts to happen. And I've seen those cases, like the blood diseases where the body starts to attack the red blood cells or white blood cells even, but the red blood cells, they get a life-threatening immunity really, really fast. And then, in those cases, you've got to use the drugs. You have to stop that process. You kind of have to shut down the immune response just to save them and buy you some time to then circle back and start to stabilize the patient. Sometimes they need blood transfusions. I mean, there's just so many ways that the vaccines can be disruptive to normal health, including cancer and even if it's not life-threatening stuff, but chronic itchy skin. Anybody who's ever lived with an itchy dog, and it's so common. And some of them, it's just hard to get them better because the body, the immune system is just so disrupted. They're just so reactive to things. They're just so inflamed, or the body's trying to detox from something that's still in their body from the vaccines, and it just can't get rid of it. And it's trying to get rid of it from or through the skin. So they're just so disruptive to normal function. And then you think about, well, if you keep their gut healthy and you have them on a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle, lots of exercise and fresh air and sunshine, why wouldn't their body be able to handle what comes its way? Health is the natural state of the body. That's the other thing too, the big, I think, paradigm shift that we need to think about. We don't create health. No. God made their bodies perfect. They're perfect by design. We don't create it. We don't create health by giving them a bunch of vaccines. We just need to support that health. Like they're they're born perfect. And
or even a bunch of supplements, both the conventional and, holistic spaces still they overcomplicate it, where you look to nature and it's just so simple. You focus on those things, and then maybe you layer in a truly natural supplement, or better yet, whole foods, but it's become so incredibly overcomplicated, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, it's very lucrative. The supplement industry is very lucrative. And, there's a lot of, testing. This is another one of my kind of beefs in the veterinary industry is so much testing, the poop testing, like the microbiome testing and the allergy testing and all of this stuff. And I always tell people, like, okay, if you're looking at doing these tests, that company also sells supplements. And if they do, I can guarantee you that whatever the test results are, they're going to be selling you a half dozen supplements.
Point you to the supplements. Yeah.
Before
that's where they lose me too.
before you're done.
Yeah. And I don't love the anxious nature it brings on in people to be constantly chasing these little numbers and these tests,
Right. Because you're treating a test result and not the patient. You're not looking at the pet. And even when it comes to gut health, how do we build, a healthy gut? We're doing natural things like natural ferments, raw fermented dairy, fermented veggies, letting them get their noses down there in the soil.
Natural exposure in safe areas. Yeah.
Yes, in safe areas. Right. Exactly. And I have done some fecal transplants, but I've actually done the poop enema thing.
Yeah.
You have to be careful on the donor. You just need to make sure it's a really healthy donor, but it seems to me like it's just put out there as this really hyper scientific, they get the poop and they test it and they're analyzing it. And then, they got to find the right program for them. It's like if a dog is in poor health, and especially if they've got gut symptoms and you can find a healthy donor, that's what I've done. I've always just found a client that had a dog or one time he was one of my own dogs that I just knew was really healthy.
Yeah.
And it's a poop enema. You blend it up and you just, put a catheter up their bum and just put a poop slurry up there.
Yeah.
And I have seen it up. I've seen mixed results with it, but I don't reach to it. There's some people in the holistic space that are just pushing for that, for anything going on. You are introducing new genetic material. And so I think you have to be careful with that. You don't want to just do that indiscriminately. But for some chronic illness dogs that are just really struggling, I can see where that might have merit. But there's so many industries just built on all this testing, and I think the microbiome
built on fear. Yeah.
Built on fear for sure. And I think the microbiome is unique for each individual. There's no they do this testing and they've done these averages where they've checked, I don't know, maybe a couple thousand dogs, but every dog's still unique. And they say these are the averages of a quote unquote healthy dog. So it's very subjective. And then they say, okay, your dog doesn't match this healthy dog profile that we've come up with. So these are the things your dog needs. Well, how do you know? Because we're all unique individuals and our pets are all unique. So the ideal microbiome for any individual is very unique. So that's why, I advocate for giving the live cultures, and then the body is going to take and grow what it needs to be healthy.
Yeah. Anytime we're attempting to standardize things, and although the intention might be in the right place to standardize things and make it easier, I just don't buy into it. Like you said, every animal, every human, every living being is individual. So unless you're working with someone like you, a holistic vet or homeopathic vet who's going to look at the dog's individual, I just think none of that stuff is worth your time. Those tests and
put the money into good
and food. Yes.
The good healthy food that people say, well, it's just so expensive. Well, if it saves your vet bills, and you have a healthy pet, isn't it worth prioritizing that? Or like we were saying earlier, prioritizing your lifestyle. Yeah, you might have to find a pet sitter or travel where you can take your pet with you. I've had a good number of clients that like, I just don't travel without my pet anymore because I don't have anybody that I trust to leave them at home. Some people have pet sitters that they trust that will come and stay with their pets or friends or family. But people make changes. They don't get on airplanes with their pets because there's no workaround for that. International travel, there's no workaround that I know of to not get the rabies shot.
And if there is, it's probably risky. You probably stand to get yourself stuck somewhere.
Yeah. Or, you lie.
Yeah.
I mean, people, I've heard stories, people falsify forms. I mean, you can go online and probably create a form, that looks like a certificate and people don't know what they're looking at. Not that I'm advocating for that, but I just heard, I've heard that it's done.
But it can definitely backfire. I've had a client recently who was falsifying documents for flying domestically. And that's fine. Most of the time they just want to see proof. They just, it's a liability thing. But they started calling the vet to confirm. And that's where it became a problem. So it can happen.
Yeah,
it certainly
absolutely.
Can happen.
It depends on who's looking. I think probably 95% of the time
they don't really care.
TSA agent, they don't even know what they're looking at. There's like, they're looking at the cute puppy or dog, and they just let them go by. But
a lot of times they assume if you're someone who's flying with your dog, surely you're a good dog parent and they're up to date on their vaccines. So why would they question anything?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For sure. So, I see so many people that just do vaccines out of convenience and also out of pressure, because the vets can really bully people. I mean, I hear these stories. They can really make you feel, like I said, fearful or guilty. Like, well, you want your puppy to die of parvo, you better get this vaccine or your puppy is going to get parvo and die. Or if you don't get the rabies shot, the vaccine police is going to show up at your door and take your dog away and euthanize it. I've never heard of that actually happening. Maybe it does. I don't know, but I've never heard of like random door-to-door checks for rabies. My clients that choose not to do the vaccine, you fly under the radar. If you got a dog that might run off, you don't let them outside off leash where they could run off and get an animal control is going to pick them up. Or if they're a very fearful dog or a dog that might bite or nip, if your dog's reactive, don't allow them to be in circumstances where they could bite. I had a client once that, her dog was naturally reared and she had chosen not to do the rabies shot. Her dog bit an Amazon delivery guy defending the house, just protecting the house and nipped at him. And because it was, a big corporation, she had to go to court and it was a mess. So you have to think of these things. I mean, I've had clients call me, like they go camping for the weekend or something. Their dog runs out, nips at somebody. I need a rabies exemption. I'm like, I can't help you.
No,
Thanks between you and the law. Now,
at that point, Oh,
and even if they had an exemption, it wouldn't help if there's a bite. So, you have to be responsible. And this is where people are like, well, I just don't want to think about all this. It's just so much easier to just get the shot once every 3 years. Then I don't have to worry about it. But you're literally putting your pet's life on the line getting vaccines these days. Even if it's just the rabies, even if they do a lower dose, some vets will do that. Do like a weight adjusted dose.
Right.
Even if it's thimerosal free. So that means it doesn't have mercury in it. But with these newer vaccines coming out, I still think they're super, super toxic. And, you just need to avoid them.
It's always a dice roll. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you might not notice any difference that you can link back to it. But I will guarantee every dog that's been vaccinated has something going on that's related to the vaccines, whether people realize it or not. And this might be a really broad statement or just my personal opinion, which you may agree with, but I think a dog that's exposed to a toxin or a virus, whether they're vaccinated or not, if they're exposed at a time where their immune system is compromised for some reason, whether it's stress or they have something going on internally, they're going to get sick whether they're vaccinated or not. I really don't think it makes a difference whether they're vaccinated or not. And I always get tripped up when I try to explain this to people that a really vitally healthy dog can probably better tolerate a vaccine. But then when I try to explain the other side, but a sick dog needs one, I'm like, well, no, a sick dog can't handle a vaccine. Like they're more at risk. So it's just like, what are we doing? Why are any dogs giving vaccines? If the healthy ones can handle them but don't need them, and the sick ones can't handle them, why are we giving them at all?
Right.
You know, like
Good point.
I always get tripped up when I try to explain them. Like, well, that doesn't work. There's really no reason.
It was the same with the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
I'd hear them say, well, the elderly, the immunocompromised, people with diabetes, people with comorbidities, meaning people that were already sick with something were more at risk. So they needed to be like the first ones to get the vaccine. I'm like, yeah, and they're the first ones that are going to get sick and die from it too.
Yes.
You know,
their immune systems can't handle it. Their bodies can't handle it.
Right. Exactly. So, supporting the body is the way to go. And, people got to advocate for their pets and be strong. Be strong at the vet. The clients that I have that are like, no, I'm just not vaccinating. Most of the people that I know that I work with that are very animate about that have had a pet get sick after a vaccine. So they've had the wake up call and now they're like, okay, I'm not doing that. No matter what, I'm just not doing it. And they'll make an appointment with their vet and you're going to have much better luck if you find a non-corporate vet. Like lots of clinics are bought up by big corporations and private equity companies and all of that.
Yeah.
So if you can find this private, mom and pop type veterinary clinic in your area and just pay for an office visit and go in and say, look, I feed raw. I don't vaccinate. Do you want my business? And if they say, no, you're going to have a rabies shot to come in, you're like, okay, I'll take my business elsewhere. And you just stand strong. And the people that I know that have done that, for the most part, they'll see them. They'll put the little note on the chart. Yeah. Crazy person. This is one of those, one of those people. Handle, with care, but you can still get your pet seen. That's it. I mean, you got to get past caring what people think. If you're really going to advocate for your pet, you're like, I don't care what they think as long as I can go in there and get care for my pet. And there's also like some other talking points. So these clinics that require, say, a rabies shot to walk in the door, most state practice codes, and anybody can look up, if you look up your state and then the veterinary practice code, there should be a list of like what veterinarians are supposed to do per the terms of their license. And there will be a section on vaccines. And I haven't read all of them, but the ones I've read always say something about informed consent, meaning they're supposed to sit down with you, talk about your pet's lifestyle, what's your pet's current health, pros and cons of the vaccine. They should be explaining to you that, some pets have reactions, so what exactly you're getting into. And the vaccine manufacturers themselves, if you read the package insert, it says that they should only be given to healthy animals, that they may not be effective if an animal's health is compromised. So for a veterinarian to require a vaccine before they'll even see the pet, I mean, really, they're doing a medical procedure without examining the pet, without knowing what the health needs are of that pet, without talking to the client about pros and cons and providing informed consent. It's malpractice, just plain and simple. And get tough and present this stuff to your vet. Because they hear the word malpractice and they get really nervous. That makes them scared.
Well, because in the code, they're supposed to adhere to the manufacturer's guidance, right?
Absolutely.
And it says, not for use in healthy animals only, but then it's mandatory for every single animal, every single dog. And there's only a handful of states that offer exemptions. And in the states where they are grantable, vets aren't signing them and aren't handing them out. No.
Yep, they won't do them. And the other thing that they'll say is, well, it's a safety concern for my staff. Well, even if you believe the whole virus thing, and that vaccines create immunity and protect their bodies from viruses. Yeah. So let's just say that narrative is true for a second.
Yeah.
Vaccinating them on the way in the door, they don't provide instant immunity. Like if that whole narrative was even true, it would take probably 2 weeks to build immunity. So it's not like, okay, they walk in the door, get the rabies shot. Now, if they bite somebody, there's no risk of them spreading rabies. And rabies, should be a diagnosable disease, right? I mean, if you believe that this disease called rabies exists, which I don't, but even if the veterinarians that do, the way it was supposed to spread is it's neurologic. So you get a bite. If the animal gets bit by a rabid animal, it's in the saliva, gets on a nerve, travels up the nerve to the spinal cord, up to the brain, comes down the cranial nerves into the salivary glands, and it's spread in the saliva. So the only way it can be transmitted is if it's in the saliva.
Well, let me add something. I looked into that. The testing of the saliva and why it's not valid for animals is because it's intermittent. They don't know how much is in the saliva at any given time. An infected animal may not have it in the saliva all the time. So it's not consistent.
It's not consistent.
Which is interesting because that means a rabid animal may potentially not even spread the rabies.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Good. And it's also a convenient excuse.
It is a convenient excuse, but it like kind of cuts both ways. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I remember that piece. Yeah.
It's okay. It's a good point. But the point I was making, that if the animal could transmit it in the saliva, it's already been in the brain, which means you're going to see the behavioral symptoms, the aggression. Yeah. There was the way I was taught, there's aggressive rabies and dumb rabies where, animals could be aggressive or they just kind of check out, but you're going to see some neurologic symptoms. So the point is, if an animal goes into a clinic and was actually able to transmit rabies, even if you believe the conventionally taught narrative, they should be showing some symptoms. So, but they're giving the shot without even examining them. So they don't even know what's going on. I mean, their whole narrative and their reasoning behind requiring these shots just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Not even, logically. There's just no logic behind it. And I think if people know this and, write down your talking points so you go in and you get nervous and you forget what you were going to say, these vets are just people and their staff is just people. I've heard all kinds of stories about people being bullied, but they work for you. You're paying them. They have no power over you, and they are under no obligation whatsoever to enforce the vaccine. I hear that one too, that vets tell people, well, I'm required by my license to enforce the vaccine. If there's, whatever the rules and laws are regarding rabies where you live, that's between you and the law. The vet's only obligation is to inform you that there's laws and they should be informing you of the pros and cons and giving you full informed consent before doing any medical protocol. I hear people, take their pets taken to the back for some procedure and they're like, oh, we saw you were, the vaccines were expired, so we just gave vaccines. I'd be, boy.
Well,
I don't know what I do. I would be.
They treat it like it's just in case, it's safe, it's benign. I mean, that just goes to show you how much they treat it like it's no big deal and it has no significant effect on the body. The fact that they think they could just administer vaccines without ever asking the dog parent.
Yeah. And it should be, I mean, it doesn't even matter if it's benign. I mean, that is, again, it's malpractice. It's bad practice. You should not be doing anything without the consent of the guardian, It's the same with children. You don't do medical procedures without consent of, it's the same as if it was a minor child. They should get the parents' consent. And with animals, they should be giving getting the guardian or the pet parents' consent. And make that very clear when you walk in. If they're going to take your dog in back, say, I want in writing everything you do before you do it.
Yes.
And if you get treated poorly, write a letter to the state board.
Yeah.
Every veterinarian, that's the worst thing that I've had those. I've gotten those letters. I had a couple of veterinarians when I was in Colorado actually send in anonymous complaints because I had written rabies exemptions that they didn't think were valid. And they did them anonymously. They wouldn't even put their names on it. So I thought they were pretty chicken. But you hate getting those letters from the state board, because if you write a letter to the state board and complain about a veterinarian, they have to follow up. So don't go to the Better Business Bureau or anything like that, because it could just get swept under the rug.
Okay.
Yeah, go straight to the veterinary board in your state, and you can probably just go right online, and there will be a place where you can file a complaint, because for licensed professionals, they will have a spot where you can file a complaint, and they will have to follow up with the veterinarian, and the veterinarian will have to respond. So if nothing else, you're raising some awareness for that veterinarian. And it's not about, I'm not trying to cause veterinarians to lose their licenses. I'm just trying to give people a way to push back, and for veterinarians to just back off and realize what their role really is as a practitioner.
Yeah,
it
they're on
is
the
about
animal side, not the institution that trained them side, not the pharmaceutical rep side. So that's what blows my mind, is thankfully there's vets like you who a light bulb went off and you trusted your intuition and you were brave enough to step away. But for so many, there's got to be something inside them that says, I don't think this is right. And they continue to do it anyway.
Yeah. They've got to. I mean, they have to see the same things I saw.
Yeah.
This stuff doesn't seem to be working. And I think what I'm doing is making my patients sicker, not better.
Yeah.
And is there another way to do this? And,
right.
But I guess it's the whole, go along to get along. There's just comfort. And if everybody else is doing it, then it must be okay. Not that, I justify that, because there's been some pretty horrific things that have happened, like Holocaust and things like that, because everybody else was doing it, got the order, so I just following orders, and you don't stop and think about what's right or moral, or even what oath you took, or what really the state board is saying, that you should be doing. But I think confronting veterinarians with this stuff, and you can do it in a firm, but not, violent way. I mean, I'm not suggesting go in with, arm swinging or anything, but confront them with some of these things and ask them some questions, and don't hesitate to put them on the spot and get them thinking about what they're doing.
Yeah, it could change it, because the more people wake up, I would hope that we could change this trajectory a little bit, at least get some of these rabies laws revisited, or because I can't tell you, it just breaks my heart how many people I work with that are just in tears because they feel like they're stuck giving their dog a rabies vaccine because it's the law.
Yeah.
And that's just not okay. I found some interesting numbers too, assuming rabies virus is real. Before there was vaccines, you know what the human rabies death count was in the early 1900s for humans?
I'm sure
it was 100 plus.
Yeah.
Okay, 100 plus. This is that it's worth. By the 1940s, it was 30 to 50 per year. 1960s, single digits to low teens. And then we're looking at the animals. Let's see. It was, I think, around 9,000 in the 1940s, and that got cut in half a few decades later. And something else people don't think about, and this is assuming rabies is real too, is that our dogs spend so much more time inside.
Oh, yeah.
At the same time the rabies vaccine was introduced, dogs are spending more and more time inside.
Right.
So there's just
there's
more
toxins.
Yes.
There's more toxins. There's no more pesticides and herbicides and electromagnetic radiation. Our world has gotten so much more toxic too.
Yeah. There's so many holes in the story, but I thought that was interesting. I'm like, how bad was rabies that you would think it was killing as many people as cancer kills every year, as many dogs as cancer kills every year, by the way they legally mandate it. but it was really just a drop
Probably
in the
more
bucket.
people like struck by lightning or something.
Exactly. So it's laughable. And I was looking at this, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And yet we're forced to harm our animals. And I don't know how much time you have, but this brings me to a deeper question I might eventually take out. But I'm thinking, if the motive here were purely profit and money, why not just do saline injections? Why do we have to harm? And that's what tells you that the motivations are darker.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know what your opinion is on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the motivations of those training the veterinarians. So veterinary school is really like marketing school. They're kind of trained to sell pharmaceuticals is really what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. And I think those people are profit driven and they're this has been like studied. There's like specific language use. I don't know if you ever followed the story of the Sacklers that started the whole like opioid, the whole Oxycontin addictions, especially in the South. Well, one of the Sackler brothers was a psychologist. Mm-hmm. And so he was a physician and he understood psychology. So what they did was they figured out how to convince the doctors to sell these drugs to people, even though they were harming them. They gave them the narrative on how to sell them, and they knew the psychology of how to get doctors to sell these drugs, and prescribe them over and over again, even though people were getting addicted, even though it was harming people, breaking families apart. I mean, it became a horrible addiction, especially in poor areas of the South. But they figured out the psychology. And so that part is evil. Yes. I think the veterinarian goes to vet school well-intentioned and good-hearted. They want to help the animals. They're convinced that this is the way to help the animals, that giving that rabies shot is protecting them from getting this horrible disease. I think most vets, they do believe that. Now, the mandating them and refusing care, that's like a whole other level. But honestly, I don't think that's necessarily like with evil intent. It's just they've been indoctrinated. It's like, is it programming?
But the manufacturers though, couldn't they just save so much money by just
putting saline in?
Yeah,
Well, then that comes down to, but there's a lot of money in chronic illness too. How much money do they make selling chemotherapy?
Yeah. That's what I was getting at. There wouldn't be reasons to go to the vet every week, right? If not for vaccinations and kibble and
itchy
antibiotics.
Itchy dogs, the Apoquel and the Cytopoint injections, and from the manufacturer's standpoint, for sure, creating chronic illness, that's the big money maker for sure. Without a doubt. And I don't know how those people they got to know, because these decisions are made. I mean, I've listened to whistleblowers that have come out of big companies like Pfizer, and they say the companies know exactly what's going to happen when these products go out there. They know they're engineered to make that happen. And there's not money in health. There's money in things that can be patented, and you can't patent anything that comes out of nature. So like herbs and natural treatments, they can't put big price tags on those because they can't patent them. So they have no interest in those treatments. And why would they put good diets out there or teach veterinarians about good nutrition? Because animals might be healthy and then might not need all their drugs. So for sure, there's definitely money in chronic illness.
Yeah, and having knowledge and nutrition and lifestyle and spending all that extra time in the appointments would take away from potential revenue. They got to get people in and out and get those drugs sold and those preventatives sold. Yeah,
it's like in the corporate clinics. I mean, I've talked to some vets, they have less than 10 minutes with the client. Yeah. So what do they have time for? A quick physical exam and write a prescription. And that's what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. It's really frustrating. Oh, And one thing I wanted to say, you're saying people get frustrated because of the laws. I have talked to people that in their counties or in their cities, they will accept titer tests. So go to your city council meeting or whoever's regulating. Usually rabies is regulated on the local level, either city or county. There's usually an overarching state law, but the enforcement's usually done on like the city or county level. Mm-hmm. So, you're not going to go in and say rabies, it's never been proven that the rabies virus exists. We need this law to go away. They'll just kick you out of the chamber. But what if you go in and say, hey, we can do a titer test. If I can do a titer test, and it's debatable what that titer test actually means, but that aside, if a number on a piece of paper gets a pet out of a vaccine, then I'm all for it. And if you could convince them, because they did antibody testing for COVID, veterinarians,
and that's all they're testing for the vaccine efficacy is that they produced antibodies for said pathogen. So the fact that they're not widely accepting titers blows my mind, because how is proof that a shot happened, more proof than the antibody test? The antibody is what you're measuring. It's just insane.
But they recognize them for veterinarians. I don't know if I've ever said this before.
Yeah.
But when you go to the AVMA, so the big National American Veterinary Medical Association conference, they'll have a booth there where veterinarians can go in and get their blood drawn and get their rabies titer checked, because vet students are required to get a rabies shot. Mm-hmm. I got mine because I was a young kid and didn't know any better. I don't know if they would have kicked me out of vet school if I didn't get it, but but they acknowledge that the titer tests are valid to determine if you need a rabies booster, but they will say they're invalid in pets. So why wouldn't they accept them?
Many countries require, in addition to the rabies vaccine proof, the titer test, because that's what proves the immune response happened, which actually, if we want to get really into it, doesn't prove the existence of the memory cells, the cellular immunity, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The immunity could be down low. That's why I say sometimes what that number means is questionable, because if there's never been a challenge, there could still be the memory. And if there were an exposure, you could still get the antibodies. However, in terms of how do we get around the laws, go to your city council meetings, your county commissioners, just say, look, provide evidence. The AVMA recognizes that this is valid for the veterinarians to decide if they need another rabies shot. Why can't we be doing a titer test if I show that my pet has adequate immunity, that if it gets exposed to rabies, which is the whole purpose of the vaccine, like you're saying, is for protection, if I can prove my pet has this level of immunity, can we allow that as an exemption? And it would at least be a start. Now, a pet would have had at least one rabies shot, probably for a titer to show up. But that's the majority of pets out there. There aren't too many that, haven't had. So that would be a whole lot of pets that could at least stop getting the rabies shot. And it would raise awareness. It would get people thinking about, well, maybe there's another way to look at this. So we also just can't sit around and wait for somebody else to change things. The time is now. And if you want the laws to be different, then go in and at least ask if they'll, would consider a titer test in lieu of the vaccination. And all they can say is no. And maybe you got to go back. Maybe you got to go to several meetings. Maybe you need to keep representing it, or get other people, they hear it from one person, they may not pay any attention. If they hear it from 10 different people and you're voters and you're voting for them, you're voting for the people that are, making these decisions, maybe you'll start to, get their attention. So you gotta, you have to be proactive if you want things to change.
Yeah. Do you have any opinion on, say someone didn't vaccinate their dog, 2 years old, 3 years old, and they come into a situation where they need a rabies shot? I've been trying to find data on this. Are dogs better equipped to handle these vaccines once their immune system is mature? Do you think a lot of these problems stem from them getting vaccinated at 6 weeks old and multiple times in their early puppyhood?
Oh, I think so.
I think
so.
it'd be much better off if they could at least wait until
Yeah.
9 months, 10 months, a year. Yeah.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
tell people that too, like if they're in a circumstance where they feel like they might have to give it. I mean, some people live in apartment buildings and
And
I
have
mean,
aggressive dogs and yeah.
I always say just wait until they ask. Like, don't offer it. Don't
Right.
ask if they require it. Just wait until they come to you and ask for proof, but postpone it. But yeah, absolutely. Puppies aren't born with a completely intact and fully functioning immune system. That develops as they're exposed to their environment. So when they start getting these vaccines, sometimes 5, 6 weeks old, you're just disrupting the whole development of the immune system. That's why some chronic illness, I think, is just so hard to treat because their immune systems just never develop normally. But if you allow it to develop normally and they're a nice, healthy adult, and then they get it, then yeah, I think the body would be better able to handle it. And there's some homeopathics and some other things. There's the homeopathic Thuya.
To clear. Did you ever take it because of have you done it for yourself?
I never have. I mean, by the time I kind of became aware of the whole vaccine thing, I mean, my baby shots were so far in the past that I didn't,
Well, apparently you can take it no matter how long it's been, and it might clear some. I've thought about it. I actually have some Thuya just in case, what I was just asking you, just in case my guy who's almost 2, if he ever is in a situation where he does have to get rabies vaccinated, I have that ready. But I thought about taking it myself because I actually just recently decided to start studying homeopathy formally because I love it so much. And I wanted to bring that up that the vaccine imprints are so powerful that a lot of homeopaths have to first address that vaccinosis piece, that layer, before they can start the other layers of healing. It's like a block to healing. That's the damage that it does to living beings. And then there's these miasms. Have you heard of those? Like the passed down from generations. So even my naturally reared dog now, he still has some tendencies, like chew his feet and has his little ear flare ups, but that's likely passed down from generations before him that have to be cleared. So I'm fascinated by the homeopathy. So
I think there's truth in all of that, and I definitely believe in the multi-generational effect. Like what first generation naturally reared could definitely have some imprints from past generations, and those effects. But then again, the healthier you keep them, the better your chances of not having that expressed. But that's a good point about clearing, because I think that the effects of the vaccines can stay around. Some pets can just handle them better than others. There's also the, Lysin, which is actually like a rabies no-so. It's also hydrophobium. It's also known as that. When I was still in practice and was still doing some rabies vaccines for people that wanted it, we would give that, to maybe help negate. I mean, I never, you don't do side-by-side studies. Well, you can't give the pet rabies and the Lysin and then just give it rabies. You kind of don't know how much it's working, but maybe it was a safety factor that that wasn't going to do any harm. But I would definitely do those things if you get stuck.
Have to give the shot.
I would definitely be doing some homeopathy. I think that's the best chance and the quickest chance of clearing that out of the body. For sure. Rather than just a physical detox, which is usually like liver support, which is not bad. But like you're saying, that vaccine miasm, because there's a strong energetic component, I think the homeopathy is definitely the way you want to go.
Right. And I think back to when I talked to Dr. Kendra Pope, the integrative veterinary oncologist, and she sort of brought this up in a roundabout way. And I made the connection back to homeopathy, where she was wondering, why are our 10-month-old, 1-year-old, 2-year-old dogs getting cancer now? And gosh, Dr. Jasek, just this week, I've had several people reach out to me with, 2-year-old dogs, 3-year-old dogs with cancer. And it, mast cell tumor, osteosarcoma. I'm like, why is this happening in dogs younger and younger? Well, more toxic environments, and then all of that inherited toxicity coming down, and the energetics, I think that has to play into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even diet, I mean, nutrition's super important, but a 2-year-old dog is still kind of a teenager. They could be eating a really crappy diet, and it's not like that's healthy, but they're not going to get cancer.
Yeah.
There's more to the picture. And I think the vaccines do play a role, and the generational effect, but it's really hard. I mean, I've had a few people find like some breeders that supposedly have, 5 or 6 generation naturally reared, but it's really rare. And I don't even know if that's 100% true. Like because everybody has a different naturally reared thing. Like sometimes naturally reared is, well, we only did rabies or something.
We only did the puppy shots. Yeah.
We only did the puppy shots, or, there's different opinions on what naturally reared is. But yeah, it's really sad because the overall health of our pets is really, really suffering. So we do the best we can, and we keep educating people, and hope for pets with long, healthy lives.
Yes. Well, I've kept you now over an hour.
So. That's okay. I like being on my soapbox, so
I know it's so important. People are just so confused, and they're scared, and they love their animals. So I like that you and I can get together and kind of help alleviate and dissolve some of that fear.
And the more people hear it, the more it helps. I mean, if they can hear it even from different people and maybe in different ways, I think it helps. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people need their own personal wake-up call before before it really lands. But, we put the information out there. I mean, it's just important. I believe that I'm here to be a voice for the animals. That's just why I'm on this earth, and I will do it to the best of my ability, and speak my truth for as long as I'm able.
For better or worse, you're telling the truth. That was hard for me at first, because I want to be liked by everybody, and I'm kind of a people pleaser. But when it came to the animals and what happened to my dogs and what I learned since, I'm like, I really don't care what people think. I'm going to speak the truth regardless.
Yeah.
And it's harsh, a lot of people, they have a hard time with it when they're used to someone being a certain way. They're like, wow, why is she so vocal about these things, these controversial topics? It's like, someone has to be. There's too many people that are scared to speak out about it. So I appreciate vets like you. I mean, I just had to unfollow some vets just this week because I'm just so tired of watching them beat around the bush and take the safe middle route. Like, stop lying to people so you get more followers and more engagement. Just be blunt and be honest.
Yeah.
People love their animals and need the truth. Yeah.
I used to be the same way. I used to think, well, if I do the vaccines, then, the people will stay with me, and I can do the homeopathy afterwards. And for puppies, I would just do like one monovalent shot. So I would do really minimal vaccines. But I'm like, no, I would never vaccinate a pet now, because I'm putting.
Oh, could you imagine doing it now? When's the last time you think you gave a vaccine?
Oh gosh. Well, I had my home practice when I was in Colorado. So that would have been maybe 2022.
Okay.
I was still doing some really minimal.
Yeah.
I know I was doing minimal vaccine protocols, because then I figured these pets weren't going in getting these big combination shots. But then now I look at that, it's an evolution. We're always evolving. So I felt good about that then, but now I'm like, but I'm still telling them it's okay. And it's just not okay. That they can feel, they can do the vaccines and feel okay about it, because I made it okay. Dr. Judy said it's okay. We do it this way. This is a safe way.
And that's often what people are looking for. When people reach out to me, I know that's what they're looking for. They want me to say it's okay. Yeah. They want me to validate their decision. It's like, no, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. There is no safe vaccine.
No. And I wish there were. I mean, there is a truly safe way to protect our pets, and it's following nature's model. Or doing homeopathic nosodes like I did with my guy. But, some really classical homeopaths are like, no, that's a crutch. Just give them the environment where disease can't thrive, and you're fine. You don't have to do nosodes. They're crutches. And I respect that too. I'm like, well, this is my first dog I did it with, so I wanted to be extra careful.
Right. Or for people that are just afraid to not do anything, the homeopathic no-sodes are great because they can still do that. It's been shown, I know homeopathic vets that really feel like they've been effective in their practices.
Yeah.
And, because and I don't ever advocate for the vaccines, but if the humans are living in fear of a particular thing, the pets are picking up on that fear, and fear manifests, our thoughts and our emotions. That's the first, step in manifestation. We bring things into the physical. I mean, I truly believe that if we are hyper focused on something. So if somebody does the no-sodes and that helps alleviate that fear, then, I'm all for it. And I think they're safe. But do I think they're necessary? I really don't. I really don't. I really believe their bodies are perfect by design, and we just need to, support them nutritionally with a proper environment. If symptoms show up, we support the body there in what they need. And do bad things happen and pets die? Sure.
They do. But again, I think that would happen vaccinated or not. I really do. Yeah.
There's always
plenty of vaccinated pets. I've actually heard that vaccinated pets, of course, this isn't mainstream public information, but just through holistic and homeopathic vets who have been tracking this, like Dr. Todd Cooney, his vaccinated parvo dogs have a lower survival rate than the unvaccinated parvo dogs.
Right. Because their immune system's just so goofed up. You just can't mess with nature. Like nature's got it right. Like their bodies are perfect. And to take these baby animals that are just getting started in the world, or like human newborns.
Yeah.
Right in the delivery room, they're vaccinating them. Like it just doesn't make any sense that would be a way to create health. It only makes sense if you're afraid. And like I tell people, if you're being talked into doing something by way of being afraid of something, then don't do it. Because health is about support, and it should feel good, and you should feel good about what you're doing for your pet, not be talked into something because you're being bullied, or because you're fearful, or because they're making you, feel guilty.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect way to end it, I think.
All right. Well, it's been great.
Thanks, Dr. Jasek. You're amazing as always.
Thank you. I feel like I could go on talking to you forever. So
I know. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was wonderful. Love chatting with her. I had a really long intro, so I don't want to spend too much time here, but as usual in the show notes, I will drop several things that we talked about. Of course, Dr. Jasek's Substack, her website. Be sure on her website, go check out her education resources. She's got a great, when to go to the ER document, a home first aid kit, home treatment document. She's linked all of the other podcasts and webinars and things she's been a part of. Listen to all of it, gobble it all up. She's a wealth of knowledge. And hopefully, again, her and I will be working on something together a little bigger soon. And I'm sweating so bad. We're in Montana. It's still beautiful, but I think it's about 90 degrees right now. And much more comfortable than 90 degrees in South Carolina, but it's hot. So Pine and I are going to go get in the river. And as usual, love your dogs.